the data manipulation language part 2. So in the previous topic, in part 1, we already learned how to manipulate one single tables, insert statement, update, and delete. Further, we learn how to use select statement combined with several conditions. Although we used one single table, we are talking about relational database. So relational means we have multiple tables and these tables are interrelated. So not only from the structural perspective, we have foreign key and primary key relationship, but also in terms of uses, we have to learn how to utilize multiple tables simultaneously. This is based on the concept, very important concept called join. To illustrate this join concept in this PowerPoint slide, we are using the example of two tables, vendor and product tables. So as you can see in these two tables, the relationship from vendor to product is one-to-many relationship. So one vendor can provide many products. And how we link these two tables, we have a primary key in one end of the relationship, and we have a foreign key matched with this vendor code column in the many end of the relationship. So in one end, since this is the primary key, each vendor code is uniquely identified. But here in the foreign key columns, same vendor codes can appear multiple times because we are describing one-to-many relationship. So what this join means is, join is a relational operation that links multiple tables by matching this primary key with the foreign key. To join tables, first you may guess, you may simply may list the tables in the from clause of your select statement. So for example, you may write down select everything, so select star from, and then not just a single table, but you may list vendor, comma, product. So in that case, what's going to be the result? What result you may expect? Here in this table we have 11 vendors, but here we have 16 products. So if you run a previous SQL statement, select statement with two tables after from clause, you may get the result is, I will show you shortly, you will get 11 vendor multiplied by 16 products, so 176 Cartesian products. So is this result that what you expected? No, actually we wanna get the result that match this primary key and the foreign key. So this implies we need some further conditions to specify. It's called the join condition. So join condition is not new stuff. We already learned to specify some condition. We can use where statement. So to do this, we will use the where clause to indicate the common attributes used to link the tables. For example, in this case, after where, we may write down like vendor code equals to products vendor code. So to better understand these concepts, let's go to our Valhalla database server and let's run some sample queries. Now in the database server, let's go to SQL query window, and what we are gonna run is first let's write down, as we mentioned before, select how about everything from. And after from, let's include two tables, like vendor and product table, both. Then, if you click go, let's see what happens. The result you can see here is, first of all, how many? 176 total, rows, instances retrieved. And if you look at this result, first part, it looks like vendor information. So it's from vendor table. And the second part here, several columns, is from product tables. But if you look at these two tables or instances from two tables carefully, let's see whether this information is the combination that you wanted. For example, here, the first vendor information, you can see this is the first row is a vendor with vendor code 21225. Now, this 21225 is matched with here in the product part. You can see it's a product information for a specific product, but who is the vendor for this product? It's a 25595. So there is no relationship with this 25595 vendor with this vendor code 21225. So what this implies? It's just a simple Cartesian product. So this is the first instance of the vendor, but this is the first instance of the product, but there is no matching between this primary key 21225 with this foreign key. So what this means? This information is useless. So what we need to do is we have to edit the previous SQL statement. How can we edit? If we click this edit button, here is as original query, and not just a list of tables. What we need to do is after from statement, we have to add some conditions. Particularly this condition is called the join condition. So how can we specify the join condition? We have to indicate the common attributes. Here, what is the common attributes? Vendor code of the vendor table and also vendor code at the column of the product table. So in that case, the column names are same. So you may not write down just the vendor code in one table equals to vendor code of the other table. But to specify the join condition, it starts with where. And also here, since the column names are same, it's ambiguous. So to avoid this ambiguity, what you need to do is you need to also specify the table name. So in this case, the first table is vendor, and then you have to put one period mark here. So this information about the table is called qualifier. So qualifier is required whenever there exists any ambiguity. Similarly here, this vendor code, the second vendor code, is for which table? Not vendor, but product table. So you can say product and then period and then vendor code. That means product table and the vendor code column is matched with vendor table and the vendor code column. So if you click go, now the result is how many? 14. And the 14 here, you can see if we look at the first part of vendor information, this vendor code 21225 is now matched with what? Product tables foreign key 21225. And here you may ask why we have only 14 instances, although we have 16 products. The reason is if you check your product table, you may find two products with vendor codes that equal to null value. In that case, we cannot find matching vendor information. So these two two products information are omitted here. So we have total 14 product table, and the vendor code, the primary key of the vendor table is joined or matched with the product table, the foreign key of vendor code. That's what we call join. So as a kind of summary, what we did in the previous example, we select everything from two tables, product and the vendor table, and we need to specify the join conditions. That is, after where we can match two attributes. So you can see from this example, joining tables is done by listing all the tables in the from clause of your select statement. And how we can specify this join condition, we have to use equality comparison. And when we have two fields with the same name, such as vendor code in this case, SQL needs to know which table each one comes from. So if we do not, specify this, you will get an error saying ambiguous reference. So to avoid this, error message, we have to use a qualifier. So for example, here, for each vendor code, we have a qualifier using the table name. So after table name, there is a period marker. So vendor period vendor code equals to product period vendor code.